I never imagined the life I had with my girlfriend would unravel into such a nightmare. We had been together for nearly 4 years, and while our relationship had its fair share of challenges, I believed we were building a future together. But nothing could have prepared me for the betrayal that unfolded. The trouble began when I started a new job. My girlfriend had recently completed her education and was on the cusp of starting her new career. We were both excited for her new chapter, and I had supported her through her studies. But as soon as she began working, things started to shift. She made new friends at work, and her social life began to change. She started staying out late, or even overnight, claiming she was at her sister's house. I trusted her, perhaps too much. Her late nights became a regular occurrence, and I convinced myself it was just a phase. I wanted to believe she was merely enjoying her newfound freedom. My trust, however, would soon be shattered. The pivotal moment came with her trip to Malibu. She spoke of it as a fun, relaxing getaway with her new colleagues, a chance for her to unwind and bond with her friends. The trip lasted several days, and when she returned, the distance between us was palpable. I noticed her mood had changed, and she seemed more withdrawn. A day after coming back, she dropped a bombshell. She needed space to rethink our relationship. I was blindsided. We had been through rough patches before, but nothing hinted at this kind of upheaval. I was devastated, but tried to remain calm. I suggested couples counseling and begged her to stay, but she insisted on leaving for some time alone. She told me she was going to stay at her sister's again. My heart ached as I watched her go, feeling a growing unease. When she eventually came back, she said she wanted to work on our relationship and agreed to couples counseling. I was hopeful that things could be salvaged, but then came the revelation that would change everything. She was pregnant. Given that we had been trying to start a family, my initial reaction was one of joy. I excitedly began preparing for the baby, buying books and baby-proofing our home. But doubts gnawed at me. The timing of her pregnancy didn't align with our efforts to conceive, and the red flags that had appeared before the trip to Malibu became impossible to ignore. I asked for a paternity test, framing it as a personal insecurity rather than distrust. Her reaction was one of hurt and anger, but she reluctantly agreed. The truth came crashing down during a tense conversation. She broke down, her face streaked with tears, and confessed that she had been unfaithful. The betrayal was gut-wrenching. She admitted that during her Malibu trip, she had met a man at a beachside bar. What started as a casual conversation turned into a reckless one-night stand. They had spent the night together, and this encounter had led to her pregnancy. As she confessed, she revealed the deception she had tried to maintain. Initially, she had attempted to convince me that the pregnancy could be explained by another man she had been seeing. Her stories were inconsistent, and her attempts to deceive me began to unravel. She had hoped that by fabricating a different father for the baby, she could avoid the harsh truth. However, as she struggled to keep her lies straight, she began to realize that the timing of her pregnancy didn't fit with her stories. She noticed inconsistencies between the dates of her encounters with the man from Malibu and the timeline of her pregnancy. Her confusion deepened when she realized that the man from Malibu could not be the father. The more she tried to piece together her story, the clearer it became that the deception was unraveling. The man from Malibu had been clear about not wanting anything to do with the child, and he had even suggested that she might convince me to raise the baby. His recommendation to get an abortion was something she had reluctantly agreed to, but his involvement in the situation only complicated matters further. The fact that she had tried to deceive me about the father's identity and the timing of her pregnancy only added to the emotional turmoil. I was left shattered, grappling with the enormity of the betrayal. Despite the heartbreak, I offered to drive her to the abortion appointment she had scheduled for the next day. The clinic was over an hour away, and I didn't want her to be alone or face any issues on the way. In the days following the revelation, she admitted that she had continued to see the man from Malibu during other trips and stays, including her visits to her sister's house. The repeated contact had made it clear that their relationship was more than just a one-time lapse. The fact that the man had insisted on abortion and suggested she might convince me to raise the baby left me feeling manipulated and hurt. The emotional weight of the betrayal and the realization of her deception were unbearable. The finality of the breakup hit me hard. Moving out of the apartment was more than just packing up belongings. It felt like dismantling a future that would never be. My remaining possessions are now in storage, and I only need to arrange one last trip to sort through everything. Once that's complete, the chapter of my life with her will be truly closed. The lease was terminated, and I had to help her clear out the last of the items. It took about 2 hours, a brief yet emotionally draining ordeal. Saying goodbye to the place where so many memories were made felt like ripping the last threads of our life together. I kept my distance, avoiding any affection or emotional exchange, knowing it was better for both of us to leave the past behind. I also terminated our car insurance policy, giving her 10 days to secure a new one. I haven't heard from her since. The silence is almost a relief, a stark contrast to the emotional chaos that preceded it. I've had no desire to contact her, nor have I been contacted. The space has allowed me to focus on moving forward without lingering attachments. Dealing with the landlord about the early termination fee has been another hurdle, but I'm determined to settle everything properly. My online account for the rental portal has been deactivated, and while I can no longer access details, the landlord assured me they already had another tenant lined up. The logistical aspects of moving on are almost complete, and I'm left with the task of finding peace within myself. Despite the pain, I'm finding solace in the freedom that comes with closing this chapter. I haven't shed tears over the end of our relationship. Instead, I feel an odd sense of liberation. My time is now my own, unburdened by the constraints of our past. I'm diving into activities that bring me joy, hitting the gym, working on side projects, and indulging in hobbies that I had previously set aside. I've even planned a rock climbing and hiking trip with one of my closest friends. The spontaneity and freedom to make my own decisions without having to compromise or coordinate with someone else is invigorating. The comment from a friend that my future self knows how bright my life will be resonates deeply with me. I'm starting to believe it more and more each day. The sense of being unburdened has shifted my perspective. I now see this as an opportunity to explore life on my own terms. The end of this relationship, while devastating, has also opened the door to new possibilities. I'm embracing this new chapter with a renewed sense of purpose and an eagerness to experience all that life has to offer. I moved back in with my parents, overwhelmed by grief. Despite her claims of still loving me, the trust between us was irreparably broken. Our life together seemed to crumble, and I felt the loss acutely. I managed to move out most of my belongings. The remaining items are in storage, and I need to arrange one final visit to sort through everything. Once that's done, I'll be completely moved out. The lease was terminated, and I had to help her clear out the last of the items. It took about 2 hours, and the finality of it all was crushing. I said goodbye without affection and haven't seen her since. I also terminated our car insurance policy and gave her 10 days to find a new one. I haven't heard from her since. I spoke with the landlord about my early termination fee, but my account has been deactivated on the renters portal. The landlord mentioned they had already lined up a new tenant. Despite everything, I'm finding a strange sense of peace. I haven't been emotionally affected as expected, but feel liberated. I've been focusing on the gym, side work, and my hobbies. I even planned a rock climbing and hiking trip with a close friend, enjoying the freedom to make my own choices without compromise. One comment suggested that my future self knows how bright my life will be, and I'm starting to believe that. I feel unburdened and excited to embrace all that life has to offer.